A lot has changed since the last Subaru Impreza arrived in Australia in 2016. Sales of compact SUVs have doubled, while sales of small cars, hatchbacks and sedans have more than halved. So we should consider ourselves lucky then that we can even say that this is the new Subaru Impreza. This time round, there is just a 5-door hatch. There is no more 4-door sedan. And when I say new, it's not quite all new. There's a lot of shared DNA between this car and the model it replaces. There's a new body, a substantially upgraded interior with a big new touchscreen, more safety tech, but of course, the price has risen, up to $5,000 on some model grades, including the one we have tested here. Has it done enough to keep up with the competition? Let's find out. The dimensions of this new Impreza are almost identical to the old model. It's no taller and no longer between the wheels than before, and it's only a few millimeters wider and longer overall. The underpinnings are fundamentally identical, though Subaru says the body is stiffer for improved ride comfort, handling and safety. Under there is the same 2-litre engine as the old model, but of course because the new car is stronger, it's heavier and therefore less fuel efficient. We'll get to that bit later. Of course, you can still get the Impreza as an SUV. This time around it's called the Crosstrek rather than the XV, but it's fundamentally the same body with taller tyres, taller suspension and some plastic body cladding to make it look more adventurous. There are 3 models in the new Subaru Impreza range, all hatchbacks. This is the top of the range 2.0S, priced from $37,990 before on-road costs, an increase of $5,200 compared to the previous model. In New South Wales, Subaru says that equates to about $42,000 drive away. Standard features include 18-inch alloy wheels, adaptive LED headlights that can turn around corners, rear parking sensors, an 11.6-inch touchscreen with wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, a power driver's seat, heated front seats, a wireless phone charger, and dual-zone climate control. Compared to cheaper models, 2.0S gains leather-accented seats, a 10-speaker Harman Kardon sound system, embedded satellite navigation, and a sunroof. Alright, inside, and the first thing you'll notice is this big new 11.6-inch touchscreen. It's a lot bigger than the 8-inch screen in the old Impreza, and it's very Tesla-like in its implementation and what it's trying to do. The graphics aren't the most contemporary, and it's not the fastest system in the world to respond, but it is easy to use once you get to know it, and most importantly, the icons are big, so they're really easy to use on the move. The screen is big, but you still do get dials for volume and tuning, and there's buttons as well for aircon temperature control, though fan speed and some of the other aircon menus like auto climate and the like are on the touchscreen, and it's not the easiest to use, but it is better than some other cars in this category, for example, a Volkswagen Golf. You get wireless Apple CarPlay, wireless Android Auto, AM, FM and DAB digital radio, and in this 2.0S model you also get integrated satellite navigation. There's a wealth of cameras, front, side and rear, but the view is a little bit distorted and you only get rear parking sensors, no front sensors like some of the cars in this class, which is a bit of a shame to see for a car that's aimed at city driving and around town use. The instrument cluster in front of me has analog dials and a small 4.2-inch digital display. It's not as flashy as a Corolla or Golf, which have full widescreen displays that are more than 12 inches, but it is functional, though the speed display is a little bit crowded with trip computer information that is hard to hide at times. As for ergonomics, you get the sense that Subaru designed the Crosstrek SUV first and then turned it into this Impreza, because you do sit quite high for a small car and the seat doesn't go quite as low as we'd like. We find these seats a little bit flat and lacking support, though they're not uncomfortable, and they're trimmed in this nice leather-like material that Subaru calls leather accented, which usually means a mix of fake and real leather. They're heated for both front seats and they're power adjustable on the driver's side with 8 ways of adjustment, and the driver does also get power lumbar support. The steering wheel is a good size and it comes out surprisingly far for taller drivers, which is great. But this covering, Subaru calls it leather, but it doesn't feel that much nicer than plastic, and it's not the most premium thing to feel in your hands. Materials elsewhere are decent. You get soft touch materials on the doors and the dashboard, though there is some hard plastic down here and on the glove box as well. But again, it's not the end of the world for a small car like this. This test car seems pretty well built too. There are no obvious squeaks or rattles. There is a little bit of shake in the center console, but otherwise it's pretty well assembled. As for amenities, you get a sunroof in this 2.0S model, plus dual-zone climate control, keyless entry and start, a wireless phone charger, one USB-A, one USB-C, a 12-volt socket, and yes, for a new car in 2024, an auxiliary port. There are some signs of cost cutting though. Only the front windows are auto up and down, not the rears, and while the mirrors fold, they don't automatically fold when you lock the car, which is a little bit annoying. In terms of storage, the door pockets are on the small side, and the glove box is decent, though you do get this really large center console storage box, and there's this cool little slot here for storing wallets, keys, other small things you don't want to put in the cup holders or the wireless phone charger. Let's head to the back. Alright, I'm 6'1" or 186 centimeters tall. This front seat's in my driving position. Now I do sit a little bit closer to the steering wheel than most, but space is pretty good back here. You've got good knee room, good headroom, good toe room as well. You're well equipped for amenities. You've got one USB-C port, one USB-A. The door pockets are on the small side, but you do have a map pocket on the back of the front seats, a fold-down center armrest with cup holders, 2 ISOFIX points and 3 top tethers as well, but there are no rear air vents. The seat base is a little bit flat, but it's not the end of the world, and you can fit 3 passengers across, though there is quite a large center tunnel, because this is an all-wheel drive car, that the middle passenger does have to contend with. I will call out that the middle seat belt is a little bit fiddly to use, because it comes across from the boot and through a number of different steps before it hits the main buckle. Not the end of the world again, but it is harder to use than it should be. Let's head to the boot. The Impreza is one of the larger cars in the class on the outside, but the boot is one of the smallest on the inside, just 291 litres with these rear seats in place. That's down on the 345 litres of the old Impreza, and compared to most rivals which have about 400 litres, like an i30, Volkswagen Golf, Kia Cerato, it is on the small side. The only thing smaller is a Toyota Corolla with a spare wheel underneath, that has 217, but on the whole, this is a small space. You can fit a full-size suitcase in there and a couple of smaller bags, but not much else. There's a bit of storage space on the side for a bottle or smaller items, and in terms of amenities, there's not a whole lot. You do get a light and some cone hooks around the place, but there's no 12-volt socket or anything along those lines. Under the floor, you get a spare wheel. It's not a full-size alloy spare wheel, but it is pretty close to the size of the tyres that come from this car as standard. And the rear seats do fold down 60-40 for more space, but again, with close to 900 litres, it's not the largest space in the world. Let's go for a drive. Standard safety features include autonomous emergency braking, adaptive cruise control, lane keep assist, lane centering assist, blind spot monitoring, front and rear cross traffic alert, speed sign recognition, a driver attention monitor, and tyre pressure monitoring. Rear parking sensors and a rear view camera are standard across the range, with 2.0R and 2.0S models adding front, side, and 360-degree cameras. All the systems work well, though some of them can be a little bit sensitive. Alright, on the road in the new Impreza. Starting with our engine, it is ample for around town duties, but when you really call on it for more acceleration, say accelerating on the highway or overtaking, it does start to feel underpowered. Now we don't expect sports car performance from a small car like this, but it is slow even by class standards. The CVT transmission is new for this generation of Impreza, but it's still not particularly responsive. You can fix that by pushing the transmission to manual mode and using these paddles behind the steering wheel, but even then it's not ideal. None of this is helped by the fact that this new Impreza is 60 kilograms heavier than the car it replaces, which both blunts performance and fuel economy. Subaru claims 7.5 litres per 100 kilometres in mixed driving. We've been seeing anywhere from 7 to more than 10 in urban stop-start traffic, which is not great when a Toyota Corolla hybrid can do less than 5 litres per 100 and a Volkswagen Golf will do less than 7. There's an auto start stop system which cuts the engine at the traffic lights to save fuel. That's pretty common, but it has a cool graphic that shows up when the feature's turned on that shows you exactly how much fuel you've saved since you last reset the trip computer. It's a cool little idea that makes you think twice before turning off that feature. The suspension does a good job of soaking up bumps, particularly speed bumps and potholes, though those big 18-inch wheels can pick up little imperfections in the road and transmit them into the cabin. And sometimes you can hear bumps before you can feel them because it's not the quietest suspension around, though again, it's far from the worst in the class and it's not the end of the world. The steering is light around town, which is great for parking, and it's pretty accurate too, though it doesn't transmit a lot of what's happening on the road surface to the driver. But again, this is not a sports car. Visibility is pretty good. There's good vision out the front, side and rear, and the turning circle is pretty good too. 10.6 metres is on the small side for the class. There's a fair bit of tyre roar, particularly on coarse chip roads, though it's not the worst in the class. A Corolla ZR hybrid is definitely noisier. Wind noise is pretty well suppressed and the mirrors aren't too small either. Visibility is pretty good out of the front, side and rear windows, particularly thanks to that slightly higher driving position that you might find in a Corolla or a Golf. And at 10.6 metres the turning circle is pretty compact too, which is great for around town use. If you find yourself on a winding road, the Impreza can handle itself, but it's not the most dynamic car in this class. There's a bit more body roll than you might expect for a small hatch. It can feel a bit unsettled over mid-corner bumps at times, and it lacks that final bit of control in its suspension that you find in a Volkswagen Golf or a Toyota Corolla. The accelerator pedal can also be a little bit sensitive in its normal mode, as can the brake pedal. It's a bit touchy at low speeds in traffic. Not the end of the world, but again, it could be a little bit better. Right, let's park up and chat about the verdict. The new Subaru Impreza is definitely an improvement on its predecessor. It's comfortable and easy to drive. I reckon it looks more inspiring, the infotainment tech is better, and there's more equipment than ever before. However, there is some room for improvement, namely the engine and transmission. It's a bit thirsty for a small car. That boot is smaller than the old model. At this money, you can get some pretty good alternatives from other brands. A Toyota Corolla Hybrid would use half as much fuel and be more fun to drive, while the Volkswagen Golf has a nicer looking interior and feels perkier on the road. Still, the new Impreza is worth considering if you're after an easy to drive, spacious, small hatch. If you enjoyed this video, please click like to stay updated with our latest videos, hit subscribe and click that little notification bell, and of course, to read the full review, click the link in the description to head over to Drive.com.au.